Hey YouTube, so today I'm going to be taking this Ibanez Talman, this is the TCM50 that's got the pickup slot there. This was a crusty eBay rescue, very cheap, and I've been working on it, and I had in my first stage gotten it to become a really great acoustic player. And so you can take a look at stage 1 restoration, everything I did. In this one I wanted to go ahead and give you can see it's cold here today, but I really wanted to get back to working on this. Played it on Sunday, it was great. It's got, I love just as an acoustic, it's got beautiful tone, but I want to get it to the next level. And what I've decided to do, I've given a lot of thought, what I've decided to do is convert it to a passive pickup system. So this is going to be more in line with a jazz box style guitar. So it's going to be a hollow body, electric acoustic, instead of having the equalizer with the preamp and the 9-volt. So what I'm going to do is I've got some gold lipstick pickups. I'm going to put a lipstick pickup right here. Now it's a passive pickup, so it's going to have different controls on it. I'm not going to need this hole anymore, and so I'm going to make this a sound hole. And I'm going to put some binding on it and round it out and make this a sound hole. It helps for as when you're playing, it reflects some of the sound up at you, so it helps you to sing with it as you can hear the pitches more clearly and accurately. And then with what was the 9-volt, I'm going to mount the passive electronics on there. So that's the plan. I wanted to go ahead and just get a quick shot of this. I'm not going to pull the strings off because I just put a new fresh set and everything on it. So what I've done is I've detuned it and pulled the strings over so that I can get my hand into the recess and do all the wiring and so forth. But I wanted to just give you guys a shot of what it looks like and my plans, and then I'm going to get the work done, and then I'll walk you through all the steps of what I did to it. Alright, well, it's a little warmer today. We have had some crazy winter weather. It's normal for all you northern folks, but not for us southern folks. We had some serious snow here, but while it's been too cold for me to play and stuff, but I've been working on this the last few days and really pleased with the build and how it's turning out and so forth. So let me run down what I've put into this in terms of the various things that I've done to customize it, and then I'll give you some tone samples with the new setup. So I decided to go for a conversion to a hollow body electric, and what that means is that it is an acoustic that has been converted to a passive electric pickup system. I decided not to go forward with the idea of doing a hybrid, with a passive and active connected and that sort of thing. I really like the simplicity of this, and so here's the design that I decided to go with. Was I put a single coil lipstick pickup in it. And these go back, this is kind of the red-headed stepchild of the pickups in terms of, it's usually you've got your humbuckers, you've got your single coils, and then you've got your fat single coils like your P90s and soap bars. The lipstick pickups just don't have the same kind of recognition as the rest, and they're wound differently, and so they have a distinctive tone. You see these in the winner actually of the Christmas giveaway. He chose the Silvertone reissue of the 1303 U2 style, and it had lipsticks, which is partly why I was thinking about lipsticks in terms of this already had a single coil slot, but it had an active system in it in terms of it had an equalizer with a preamp and a 9-volt. And this is just personal preference, I just don't really like that. I prefer the passive electric setup. And it's one of the reasons why I've steered more heavily into electrics, and it's just personal preference. I don't really care for having all of the onboard electronics with the equalizer and so forth. I prefer the solid body setup in terms of controls and output and settings and so forth. Just personal preference. And so I've been thinking about the hollow body since, and check out, I've got it, it got some, it got some booze, down with the queen of garbage, from some purists out there that didn't like me comparing this Inyan Vena Vietnamese guitar to a Birdland. And you can see both the original video, and then I have a response to those folks saying, I said what y'all are yelling at me in the video, but they're not interested in watching anyway. But I've been thinking about the hollow body electric style guitar, where it is truly a acoustic guitar, but it is got electric guitar, like solid body pickups and wiring in it. It's got a passive electric setup. And I really, really enjoy that guitar. I really like it. It's on the big side, and it's, it's got the twin humbuckers and so forth. It is very, very limited because you have the humbuckers and so forth. It's very limited in that the moment you put it to any kind of high distortion, high effects, immediately get feedback. And that's the biggest drawback of true hollow body. Hollow body is different than a semi-hollow because a semi-hollow will have a block down the middle to help mitigate those issues of feedback and resonance and unwanted harmonics and so forth. And if you even continue, you get to where you have a semi-hollow body but without any sound holes, which even further, I've got a Dan Jellicoe that semi-hollow body but it doesn't have sound holes, like Lucille, B.B. King's guitar. And so, there's various levels. And I'm not a real high distortion guy, so I don't need to have those extra protections. But I do like being able to play with a little bit of edge and adding that into it. And so, in thinking about what I wanted to do with this exactly, what are my options and so forth, I decided to experiment with doing a single coil lipstick. And the reason being that single coils, they have a warm, bright tone to them that will fit well, I believe, with the acoustic, and they are less prone to issues of electric sound and the hum and the cycle hum and everything that you get, particularly from single coil pickups. They're less noisy, and they're a little bit, brighter and creamier in terms of the tone palette. And there are different ones out there. Silvertone, actually, I just saw in the news, Silvertone is making a big rebirth, as in the company has been bought out, and now it is an American company, RBI Music. Check out, I got a video, What is the Future of Silvertone Guitars? And at NAMM, one of the things that they just announced was a lipstick pickup that you can buy, a high-end, made-in-America lipstick pickup that you can buy and put into guitar. That's super cool. And their first model of the new line is a baritone U2 style with those lipstick pickups in it. So very cool, very cool. Very interested to see how the company goes forward, because I really like Silvertone. They're kind of one of the, recognizable but not a mainstream brand as such, and I really enjoy them. And I've got a number of, particularly from the Samick era, some great stuff. But anyway, so check all of that out as well. But so all of this has been getting me to think about what I wanted to do with this. And so I decided to go with the lipstick pickup. And you can see there, I got a gold lipstick. This is a Artec by Musiclily. And I've got a whole set of them because I could buy one for about 20, or I could get a set for 40 something. I was like, well, I'll just get, and I'll have two more. Because then they've got them, one of them counterwound, so you can do a 3 inline. So basically they're made for like swapping out Strat, which would be cool too, to do a Strat setup with 3 of the lipsticks. That's, that would be a really cool, easy mod. But I wanted it for this one. And I had to widen the hole just a wee bit because the pickup that came out of it was more of a brick. It was more rectangular, and this needed a little bit of rounding, but not a lot of routing. And otherwise, the the screws were fine in terms of the distance, so I didn't have to re-drill any of that stuff. And being, empty as a full hollow body acoustic, I just ripped out the guts from the old one. There we go. So this is what I pulled out of it, and there's the jack and the 9-volt and equalizer, and here's the original pickup. So you can see it's much more rectangular than the lipstick that I put into it. So the other challenge in terms of doing a total conversion like this over to passive is where to mount the controls, because originally you had the equalizer on here, which basically takes the place of the volume and tone controls on a passive. So I had to figure out where to put it, and you know, one option would be to mount it to the body, but that would also require drilling. It would require new holes we put into it and so forth. And so what I decided to do was to utilize what I already had, and that is I took the 9-volt cavity here, the hole for the 9-volt, and I opened it up a little bit more and then custom cut and beveled a piece of pick guard to, and I ended up, it was so close I was almost able to get it in with the original holes. This was actually the original plate that I cut, and the electronics would mount on here, but they wouldn't quite get in there exactly right, and so I had to widen it a little more and get a little more room in there to make sure nothing's touching and shorting out and that sort of thing. And so now we've got it nice and mounted on there, and I've got these kind of golden brushed bronze looking knobs on it, and so I've got one volume, one tone, very easy. And then the other thing that I did here was I turned this hole here where the preamp was, and I turned that into a sound hole. The reasoning for that is that as you're playing, this is aimed right at your face basically. And so when it's much less sound if I cover it up than not. So what this is good for is giving you, it's almost like with a choir you have a monitor speaker aimed back and it's quieter than the actual, you know, PA speakers. It's quieter, but it gives the choir where they can hear pitches better, they can hear themselves, and you know, you can hear if there's music playing in terms of like recorded music, or if you have an amplified instrument and that sort of thing, you can hear all of that easier because you have sound coming back at you. So that's the idea of a monitor. So I consider this like a sound hole monitor because it's smaller. You don't need a huge hole right there, but a small hole that's aimed right at your face. And I got the idea from, I've got a Musiclily hybrid that's a Strat style body, but it's a hollow body, and it has 2 single coil pickups in it, and then a under saddle piezo, you know, active 9-volt pickup. And so it's a true hybrid, and you can switch between them and so forth. And it has a sound hole here and here, thereby allowing your electronics to take up where the sound hole would be in the middle. So it's got 2 sound holes here and here. And so, and I really liked it. It's not very, it's such a small body, and the straight up Strat style body, it just, you don't get a lot of acoustic projection, like very, very little. And which is, you know, I think the reason why it didn't really take off as a model, and it's a beautiful guitar, but it never really went anywhere. And I actually at one point chatted with the guy in the Ash family that had designed it, and we talked about some of that and so forth. Very innovative, very neat design, but the biggest drawback in reviews and things, if you look that up and you check it out, the biggest drawback is people say, well, it's not really all that acoustic. Like it does not have a lot of that acoustic warmth. And whereas this, I can actually play this truly as an acoustic. In fact, I did last Sunday when I preached. I opened with Wayfaring Stranger and then went on to preach about Job. And so, you know, I got to play this. At this point, I hadn't done any of this, and so I was purely playing it. I'd actually just pulled it all out, so it just had extra holes in it, more or less. And so it had no electronics in it, and I played it purely as an acoustic, and it was great, and it sounded really, really nice. But when you're singing with a guitar, having that hole right there, having that what I call like a monitor hole, gives you that little bit of extra sound coming up to your ear, which I have to really be careful with my pitch and trying to make sure that it is matching and so forth. And this helps. It helps tremendously. A lot less in terms of like guessing, because you're not getting that echo effect where the projection's going out and then coming back to you. It's much more direct, much more like right to your ear. So you can hear the difference. Right, so it gives you a little bit of extra, you're getting to hear the notes that you're playing more clear. It's a cleaner sound coming up to your ear. So, you know, and the way that I finished the hole, I opened it up, so I bored it out, so the little drill holes from the former electronics were taken off, and got all that smoothed down. And of course, I used my Dremel for all of this. I've got this snake Dremel that I have just hanging right here that I'm using for all sorts of stuff. And so once I got that all done, I used this purfling strip, ABS purfling strip, also known as binding, and you know, super cheap stuff. I got this, it's I believe Cache brand, and I got this giant bag, which I only needed a tiny bit for this project, but you know, if you buy some, you got to buy a big whole strand of it. So I've got enough binding strip for in cream, vintage cream forevermore. But I worked it in there, and once again I used the Star Bond, which I'm not actually sponsored by them, but I love their product. I use it all over the place, and you know, you see it in many of my restoration videos, talk about it. Be very, very careful if you get any of it. It's thin, and it's very caustic. It will burn you, and it's slippery. It slips, which is perfect for getting into really, really tight spaces. And so in this case, what I did was I got it approximately cut. I cut a little bit too much, and purposefully, because then when you get to the very, very end, then you can trim it down. And so it's, you know, it's not perfect work. There's a little tiny bit of a notch right there, but you know, I mean, there's not perfect work on the guitar itself. But you know, given that I'm not working in a factory or anything, I'm not working in a professional workshop or anything like that, I think it turned out pretty nice, and much better than it before. It just looked like a hole. It just looked like, you know, there was just a hole there. Now it looks like it's purposeful, and you know, it matches the binding on it. And so I really like how it turned out in terms of the location of this, because it's not in your way, right? It's not inhibiting. You see the controls, and they're not inhibiting, and in fact they're right here, so it makes it very easy, right? You're playing boom, 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 and you got your controls right here, so you can dial it in very, very quick and easy. And then of course I used the Pure Tone double contact. Those are great. I just buy them by the bag, 5 at a time, and anytime I ever have any kind of wiggling, clicking, packing in and out on a jack, I just swap it for one of those. So I put that in there, and you know, really plays wonderfully. And so I'm gonna make sure the tuning is all good and set, and hook her up, and you can hear some of what she's doing now. So there, that was just pure acoustic. And I'm on my bassman setting, and got the volume up, tone at about 4. So you can hear it's got really great fidelity in terms of it's not a piezo, but yet I think the output really captures the warmth of the acoustic really well. It translates, you know, in the way that is amplifying it. I think it translates it really great. And I wonder why this is not more of a thing. Because usually when you see the true hollow body electric acoustics, they usually have either like this with a dual humbucker, or you get like big fat P90 styles or soap bar styles, like, you know, dog ears, like a casino, you got those two P90 dog ears and so forth. It's great, but that's just adding to the problems of feedback and distortion. This you can hear, and I need to do some more in terms of grounding work. This doesn't have a big metal plate anywhere for me to ground onto it. So if I crank up the tone and don't touch anything, you can get a little bit of that hum, and that's just a grounding issue at this point. And it's mostly noticeable when you've got the tone and volume cranked up all the way. But I mean, I think it's really excellent. So I just switched over to pedal to show you that it actually deals with effects really, really well. So you've got really crisp, clean acoustic tones that are very nicely amplified. I think the fidelity of the amplification is very clear and crisp, but you can actually put some effects on it and it still sounds really quite excellent. Trim my fingernail. I bet this thing would be great to play slide with. I've got to find my slide. I'm not sure where it ended up. It ended up in one of my gear bags. You can hear I'm not getting, you know, squalling feedback and so forth. as you can hear, I'm just genuinely enjoying playing this guitar. It really has found that peculiar space between a solid body electric and an acoustic. There is this like fun hybrid zen that you get when you have something that has all of the warmth and that just there is a tone that is unique to a true acoustic guitar. It's just, and I know they've got pedals that simulate acoustic tones and stuff, and that's fine. There's a genuine tone to analog acoustic guitar that you just don't otherwise get. And I think this pickup, like, I don't know, maybe Ibanez can be out there and like, hey, this is a great idea. Maybe they should make one of these, because this is excellent. This is really, really excellent. I vastly prefer this kind of a setup to the little equalizer with all the knobs and push and pull and the 9-volt and all that. Much simpler, much simpler. This is closer to an Acoustasonic, which I'm also very interested in. I've got a cheap knockoff one that's, it looks nice, but it doesn't play that great. And I just saw that Fender's come out with a $600 version in their new standard Indonesian made, which, check out. I'm going to do a video about the news on that and what does this mean, particularly for Squier. This is some interesting times for Fender as a brand. I would love to get my hands on one of those new standard, either the Tele or the Jazzmaster. Both would be really cool. So it's more similar to that, but yet still, again, I think the genuine acoustic tone in this is more pronounced than you get in Acoustasonic as well. And so, it would be really, really cool if Ibanez could make one of these, put a lipstick in it, and, you've already got the basic holes, because they still make these, and, they're not all that prominent. I noticed that most of the listings I've seen are in Europe, so I don't know what's going on there, but in particular this, you can still find this color, but the only listings I've seen for it are in Europe. So I don't know what the deal with that is, but this thing is tremendously fun to play and get some really great, like it really is wedding that acoustic and electric. It plays closer to an electric, but you get that twangy resonance and the harmonics of an acoustic, and I think I've really hit on something. And so, in just a short while, a couple weeks of tweaking at it and tuning on it and doing this and that, and honestly the hardest thing to do was just this. Like, not wiring the electronics was easy, but getting them in there exactly right and getting this cut, that probably took the most time. But I've probably put maybe 10 hours, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 hours total into this rebuild, and now I have something that is a true custom. There is nothing out there exactly like this. This is a unique build, and it's just the way I want it, and it sounds excellent. I mean, it is, and considering that I got this as an attic special and, just crusty, I think all in I've put less than $200 in this guitar. And, I think this thing is fantastic and just a completely unique build now. So what do you guys think of this? Do you like what I've done with it? Do you have any questions about anything I did, or are you considering doing anything like this? I love to see your comments. So thank you all for watching, and as always, please like and subscribe. January's been really slow, so really, metrics are really down, and just still trying to grind to that finish line and get the channel going. And if you haven't already, check out the guitar giveaway that we've got currently going on through March 20th. And even if you don't go over to enter, please go over there and vote for people, because the community is voting for the finalists. So make sure you take a look at that too. And as always, have a wonderful day.